them, but they haven't accomplished what they should. And President Trump said yesterday, we can pretty much do what we want, this new International Board of Peace. And we had so much information we covered last night, so many clips. And the numbers, again, show us, folks, that people are interested in what to think, how to think through the lens of the Bible. So very, very encouraging indeed. Brand new article before Andy Wood joins us. Brand new article over at technocracy.news. Technocrat in chief, the monarch of America, chairman of the board. And of course, some people are excited, others are concerned. Last night, you had a lot of people very concerned about this new board of peace and what it's going to do, where it's going, the technocrats. Some people that have been very supportive of President Trump last night were talking about how they're starting to get very nervous about what he's doing. But we also talked about the fact, could President Trump actually, with the Kushner partnership, and they're building in Gaza, huge multi-billion-dollar development, could they actually, as part of the Board of Peace, stabilize that region in order to go ahead as a Board of Peace and say, Jews, build your temple? So Rob Linstead joined us last night. I'm missing that name in there. I asked Rob Linstead about that in the panel last night, and he said, that's very plausible. Now, the Jews are not going to let Donald Trump build it because he loves to build stuff. So could Donald Trump help build it? No, the Jews are not going to allow a Gentile to help them build. They've got that under control. They'll do that. But could Donald Trump and the Board of Peace, with all those nations, bring some stability that would allow for the building of the temple? That is definitely on the radar. And all of the guys last night kept talking about the fact that they never expected to be alive to see this much happen. They never expected this much, to see this much in their lifetime. Many of them expected we would have been raptured by now. They weren't real, they were pretty shocked that we're still here as pre-tribulation, many of them, and still watching these things develop. Some of the guys think it's possible we could even be here to see Gog-Magog battle. I personally would like to be here to see that. I'd love to be here to report on that part of it. I'd like to be here to report on that part. That would be something to be a news guy, report on. But all of the guys last night are very shocked to see what's unfolding, that they're here to witness it and talk about it through the lens of the Bible. And so what a panel last night. It's available at worldviewtube.com. All right, before we go to Dr. Andy Woods, many of you are bracing for what they're saying is going to be a humongous storm. I mean, this is going to be big. It's going to impact about 160 to 200 million Americans. Again, I'm going to go back to the fact that I find it very interesting that we're telling Israel, hey, we're going to develop this board of peace. We're going to oversee Gaza, dividing their land. And then when I look at this map, about half the country is divided with this weather. And Ryan Hall, one of the meteorologists that I like to follow, whose article now has had 2 million views. 2 million views. And it was just put up, of course, a few hours ago. Wouldn't guys, late last night? Let's see, what's the date on his article? Let's see. It's a long article with a lot of graphs. I don't know. Maybe somebody help me out. There we go. Here we go. It was put up on the 23rd. That's today at 8 a.m. And he's in our time zones. That's 8 a.m. Central. And his article is entitled, "It's Here and It's Worse Than We Thought in Some Places." We're past the forecast stage now. This is a live event. I told you yesterday, he writes, that the data had locked in. Since then, the overnight model runs have only reinforced what we already knew while revealing some critical details that changed the conversation in specific areas. If you're looking at a map, folks, the red is in various places. They're going to get hit really hard. Memphis is right on the edge of that. That's us, right outside of Memphis. And of course, today at Lowe's, Logan went to Lowe's, and then I was there early this morning. Then Logan went later, and I got video footage I'll show you tonight on Brandon House Live. They were bringing out the generators and on a forklift. They're bringing them out on the pallets And the people were crowded around, all trying to buy about $1,000 generators. And then, you kept thinking, well, that's all. They're going to have one pallet. That's all. And the guys kept telling everybody, don't worry. Everybody that wants one will get one. Now, that's not normally what happens when bad weather comes, right? It's normally the few who get what's there on one or two pallets, and that's it. They had three trucks, large trucks. By a few hours later, they are out in the parking lot, the line in the parking lot to get one of these. Now, that's just one of these box stores. I just got a report from someone else on our team who went to another huge box store to buy groceries, and it is slammed. I know that not yesterday, but the day before at one of the grocery stores, most of all the meat was gone. So again, it is the South. We don't get a lot of this. Your first flurry and all the milk and the eggs are gone. But folks, this is not one of those events. They're comparing it to what happened in the Mid-South in 1994. Some of those folks were without power for 10 days to 2 weeks without power. They're saying this could be a 40-year storm. Now, it's not just a Mid-South story. It stretches all the way to the East Coast. And we'll be obviously tracking this. But right now, the bullseye for the worst icing has crystallized over the Delta region. That's us, folks. If you are in Corinth, that's Mississippi, Oxford, Clarksdale, Tupelo, Holly Springs, Grenada, Greenwood, Indianola, or Cleveland, Mississippi, you need to be prepared to shelter in place for 72 hours minimum with no power and no ability to travel. And then, of course, it goes out from there, stretching on to the Tennessee Valley and out to the East Coast. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I do find this whole thing rather interesting, the timing. And we're going to get to that with Dr. Andy Woods here in a minute. But we'll be praying for you. You pray for us. Take it seriously, folks. Limbs falling off trees, these kind of things, that's very dangerous if this falls on your car, if they're big enough trees falling on cars, that kills people. Not too long ago here in our area, a very tragic story of a little elementary child out swinging on their grandparents' swing set, and some limbs and the wind broke and hit her, and she died over the Christmas break. And so you need to take this stuff very seriously anytime you have these strong winds. But of course, icing and the ice and the power lines and just falling limbs. Be very careful, and be sure to check on your elderly neighbors, and certainly some of the ladies, or even a widow or widower that's living on their own. Check on your neighbors. All right, joining me now is Dr. Andy Woods. Dr. Woods, thanks for being back with us. I think you were with us yesterday. It's all running together, but I think you were with us yesterday. What did you make of our panel last night? Did you have a chance to watch the panel last night?
Yeah, I was with you yesterday at 1, and so I heard a lot of those topics you guys brought up, but I caught a lot of the panel, probably about 2/3 of it. And I loved the panel. I mean, I thought it was great. As I was hearing all of this, with your different experts that you had there, I mean, you'll never hear any of this kind of stuff on any conservative outlet. But I love the tie-in with Bible prophecy. I love the things that were brought up concerning Noah Harari and what he was saying with AI. I didn't love the content, obviously, of what he was saying, but I loved the fact that issue was being surfaced and how it would tie in with the Mark of the Beast technology. I love the intellectual honesty with the president, because all of us are Trump supporters and much prefer him to Kamala Harris. But that doesn't mean the guy doesn't have a sin nature, and he has to be kept in check as well concerning the United States Constitution. Leo Hohmann, others bringing that up. So I don't know. I just thought the whole thing was great. I thought it was rare information that you probably won't get anywhere else unless you watched it. I was pleased to look at your YouTube stats earlier today. I don't know what they are now, but it had already 10,000 views. Which shows me there's a healthy interest in the subject matter. So I like the rarity of the information. I like the tie-in with Bible prophecy, and I like the combination of guys that you had assimilated, to give different, points of view concerning a major issue of our time, globalism versus nationalism.
Was there anything in there that shocked you, or that made you sit up and go, "Oh, wow"?
I think the Jared Kushner thing shocked me. Of course, I had heard that earlier in the day, because I was on your radio show, but just this whole blueprint that they have worked out, and this didn't come about in a vacuum. I mean, they've been working on this for a long time. They wouldn't have the sophistication of the plans and the economic buildup and everything they think is going to happen. And I guess I was shocked at how well thought out it was, meaning they've been working on this for a long time. So this thing with Gaza, we're just kind of reacting to it, but these elites have been dealing with this subject matter for years and years and years. I guess that kind of was a shock to the system, although it probably shouldn't have been a shock.
Well, this storm, I don't know what your situation is down there in Houston. I know Dallas is in the zone of potential fallout from this, but about 160 to 200 million Americans are going to be impacted by this, they're saying. I also noticed that as we're on the air here at 1:13 Central today, gold is at $4,975, and silver is at $101.42. Silver has now gone over $100. I mention all this because our country seems to be melting down. I'm watching and reading financial reports on the amount of debt to our GDP, global domestic product. And it seems we are again at a serious endpoint. And this kept coming out at Davos and the need to go digital very fast. So again, I want to come back to this and what your thoughts were from what you were hearing out of Davos, the old order being destroyed, the new order coming in. We'll get to a few other issues in the Middle East. We're also getting reports, and maybe the guys in the control room can kind of help double check this, but we are getting reports from some credible sources that 17 senior generals have been arrested, and that is correct. Xi Jinping has arrested them. We're going to try to confirm that as well. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. I'm going to continue to urge you to write down Friday night, October 23rd, Saturday, October 24th. Please put that on your calendar right now. Save that date. We already have signed the contract and given the deposit for the Waukesha Expo Center on Friday night, October 23rd, Saturday, October 24th for the Worldview Weekend National Conference. I think that's number 23, if I'm not mistaken. This will be year number 23 of our national conference. We're moving it to Milwaukee this year. We're going to have a lot of very interesting folks there, no doubt about it. And remember, the midterm will be just a week or two away. But who knows? We might even put an invitation into the Prince of Iran, because we have some folks that are working very closely with him that are monitoring our network and have been extremely complimentary of the professional coverage we have done and how we've stayed on it. And there may even be an opportunity to hear from the Prince and have him speak in person. I'm not saying that will happen, but that is actually being considered for us submitting such a request. And of course, that would be one of those speakers where we bring them in just again as a major player in history to hear and listen to this issue that he is talking about with Iran, Islam, the red-green axis, now what we're called the black-green axis. So I don't know who all will be there, but we'll be inviting some of the folks you've loved to hear from over the years and some new folks as well. But isn't that interesting that we're getting a great feedback from the Office of the Prince, because they're aware of the coverage that we're doing. And just was an amazing interview yesterday that Annie Cyrus had with an Iranian doctor here in the U.S. who often sits in the room with the Prince. And he really was an interesting interview if you didn't catch that. So it's amazing the doors that get opened into places where people are monitoring what we're doing and appreciate the fact that we're trying to bring a balanced perspective, and thus they then start to provide for us opportunities to interview all kinds of very intriguing and historical figures. So if you didn't catch that interview with Annie yesterday, it's on our website now, worldviewtube.com. Joining me again is Dr. Andy Woods of andywoodsministries.org. All right, Andy, I don't know what 2026 holds. We're now hearing that Sean Hannity put out last night that help is on the way still to Iran, and that Trump supposedly re-truthed that. I have that accurate, guys? He had a segment where he said that, and Trump reposted that segment. Now we know the USS Abraham Lincoln is in the region. There are a lot of other assets in the region. And President Trump last week made a comment about it's basically time for new leadership in Iran. We don't need MEK. We don't need the Marxist Islamic group. But yeah, even the Middle East could be a very interesting year again for us. We also have a ton of ISIS leaders that have, and ISIS terrorists that have been broken out of a prison in Syria. Now, we're also getting report, listen now, folks, that some of these people are getting help by the Syrian regime. Remember, the guy that got brought to the White House in a suit. We're being told that some of these Syrian terrorists, even ISIS players, there's good authority from some of the intel people that I follow, that some of them are getting assistance in getting U.S. passports, IDs, and getting into the U.S. So all I'm saying, Dr. Woods, is from the economics to the weather to terrorism to more of America's enemies coming in here. We're now hearing that part of Venezuela operation was trying to disrupt Iranian drone launching sites. Iran launching drones from Venezuela to America. Who knows what they're doing on the border? We've been warning about Mexico for the longest time, and we know that that's really a narco state, and they are in relationship with China. They're in relationship with the cartels are with China, of course, and I wouldn't doubt that we don't have some of the Islamists in there as well. So America seems to be going into very perilous times. A lot of people think, oh, the golden age is here. Everything's fine. Trump's in the White House. Dr. Woods, I think we're getting where we're in a more dangerous position from our enemies. And I have to bring the correlation to what we're doing with Israel and telling Netanyahu, oh, well, you know what? Here's your late invitation to come onto the board of peace. This is what happens when countries disobey God and divide his land. Pick it up there.
Well, I mean, there's just not a good track record of countries, what happens to them when they come against Israel. And it's just a matter of looking at your Bible and seeing it. I mean, all these players that I'll mention very briefly were at one time dominated the whole world. And now they're either, a skeleton of what they once were, or they're gone altogether. And here they are in order: Egypt, Assyria, and then came Babylon, then came Medo-Persia, then came Greece, then came Rome. And then you go right into modern times and you see how the sun never set on the British Empire, how that changed. You see issues related to Spain back in the day. You see Hitler's Third Reich that was supposed to last, for 1,000 years. And isn't it interesting that tiny Israel, remains and all of these powers are gone? I mean, the dominant political power on the earth during the time of Christ was Rome. And Israel was this little tiny Hebrew-speaking nation. And isn't it interesting that Rome is gone and Latin is a dead language, and yet Israel is alive and well, and Hebrew is a live language. And, at some point you have to say, what side of history do I want to be on here? I mean, if God takes Genesis 12, verse 3 that seriously, that he curses those who curse his elect nation, at some point, someone at the highest echelons of foreign affairs in the United States, you think would grab onto this, but it's kind of like they just move forward with their plans as if God has never spoken any immutable principles in his word. And that's what bothers me about this whole, hey, let's go into Gaza and let's divide it up and let's pretend like it's not Israel's land, but our land. Well, that's a violation of Joel 3, verse 2. This is what's going to bring his wrath on the nations, plural, in the coming tribulation period. We talk about triggers. Have you ever asked yourself what triggers God? According to Joel 3, verse 2, what finally triggers God is this cavalier attitude that the nations have towards his land. So I don't know. I would think at some point someone would bring this to the president's attention. You've got people that are knowledgeable there in the administration like Mike Huckabee, but it's almost like it never gets to the top and people just go ahead and do what they want to do in blind pursuit of economic prosperity without even consulting God or his word at all.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to give credit where credit is due. We are seeing the plummeting murder rate. And so it shows that law and order does work. The great article over at the Federalist. Plummeting murder rate shows law and order works. And apparently, the murder rate now is the lowest level in 125 years that such records have been kept. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Thank you, President Trump and team, for getting the murder rate down, crime under control. I mean, we were just seeing that so many of the Marxist, leftist, progressives with the no bail, cash, no bail, zero, back out the door. We just heard about a guy that was shooting at people. They let him go in insanity charges. Back on the street, he just killed 3 people in Florida, and he didn't even know them. They had no altercation with him. He just randomly shot and killed them. The rampant crime, of course, has been a big issue for our country. But this is good news here. So I do want to, thank President Trump's administration for this. You want to comment on that?
Well, I think that's what makes the Trump administration kind of frustrating for people like us, is there's so much that we want to applaud. Look at what he's doing in Minnesota, in a state that's so blue. I mean, so far to the left, it's almost fallen off the radar screen, kind of like my home state, original state where I was born, the state of California. And he's doing so many great things with saying no to the World Health Organization, enforcing borders. It was the Trump justices that overturned Roe versus Wade. We could go on and on. But then there's this other side of it where you look and he's meeting with Sam Altman and all of these kind of technocrats in the White House, meeting with Bill Gates, fiddling with the promised land of Israel, other issues we could go into. I saw something recently where Trump was telling conservatives to stand down concerning the funding of abortions through the government. Why is he saying stuff like that? I thought he was pro-life. So I don't know. This is what makes me so conflicted about the Trump administration. Is there's a lot of great things, but we can't be, Brandon, clapping seals.
Yep.
We have to be Bereans with everybody, including the leader of the free world.
100%. We're getting word from our reporter on the ground in Israel right now. He's texting me here live. And he said that there is also reports, and we'll see if we can confirm this, 56 Chinese military aircraft have landed on Iranian territory in recent days. We'll see if we can get confirmation on that. That's interesting. I do want to go to this story. Iran using Venezuela to install drone tech in Western Hemisphere. I mentioned this a while ago. On Tuesday, the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned a group of individuals and entities for their role in the weapons trade between Iran and Venezuela on grounds that it constitutes a threat to U.S. interests in the Western Hemisphere. Reason why I think this is important prophetically speaking, Dr. Woods, is, if Iran and a coalition move against Israel, we've often said, wouldn't they move against the United States at the same time or before, so that the biggest ally of Israel, the U.S., is so busy concentrating on their own problem that they don't have time to come to the aid of Israel, which, again, makes it more in line with the fact that the whole world, it says in Ezekiel 38:39, knows that God did this. So the whole world will know that God intervened on behalf of Israel and saved her from her enemies. I think this could be a story, again, that shows why we've been talking so much about Venezuela here on this broadcast since 2008, because we knew Iran was working in northern Venezuela, Caracas, 1,264 miles as the crow flies to Miami, and that they could set up like a Cuban Missile Crisis there in Venezuela. Well, here's more information. Now we have drones. And if Iran wants to move against the U.S., then they and their coalitions could move against Israel, which, again, what is this treasure they're after? I don't know. Everything gold, silver, natural gas, oil, the beautiful infrastructure they're going to be building in Gaza. Maybe all of the above. I don't know. I want you to comment on that when we come back, because Iran, again, moving big time into our hemisphere. Also, President Trump wanting to take Greenland, and he's working on this. And I have another report today that this is strategic, because some of these weapons that would head to the U.S., whether from Iran or Russia, could come and would likely come right over that region. And so we need that area of Greenland for this Iron Dome that President Trump is working on. All that and more with Dr. Andy Woods, andywoodsministries.org. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk with your host, Jim Schneider, coming up at 2 o'clock at vcy.org or on the VCY terrestrial station you're listening to now. We'll be right back. What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. So, Dr. Woods, here we go. Iran putting in, according to our own government, drone launching points in our hemisphere. But this, again, I think would fit with Bible prophecy, as I said before the break. Move against America, and then this coalition of Iran and other nations move against Israel. We're taken out of the equation. Their biggest ally can't come to their defense. Speak to that, please.
Well, that's an interesting article. I had the chance on our Pastor's Point of View podcast not the one that was released today, but last week, to talk about that. And that's the part of the Venezuela issue that most people aren't talking about. The whole focus is on the capture of Maduro, etc. But the truth of the matter is one of the entities, national entities that wept and wailed the loudest with what Trump did concerning Maduro recently is Iran. And lo and behold, Iran has drones in Venezuela. And does that fit with Bible prophecy? Well, absolutely it does, because Ezekiel 38 and 39 very clearly predicts an invasion coming from Persia, which is modern day Iran, into the land of Israel in the last days. Now, in order to set the stage for that, Persia or Iran has to become a regional power, as does Russia and Turkey, several other players that are mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And so, this is just more of an example of Iran flexing its muscles as a regional power around the world. And it also is a revelation concerning something you talk about a lot, Brandon, the red-green axis, the cooperation between Islam and Marxism. And here is Venezuela now, well, at least under Maduro and formerly Hugo Chavez, etc., under communist hands and influence, cooperating with Iran, a Shiite Islamic theocracy. So there's more example of the red-green axis right there, in our hemisphere. Whatever happened to the Monroe Doctrine, I think it's now called the Donroe Doctrine, that what happens in our hemisphere, is our business. So that adds a whole nother layer of understanding to what happened recently, in Venezuela with Maduro.
And let me go to Greenland. There's a great article over at the Gatestone Institute. For decades, the world treated Greenland as a sentimental footnote in Arctic mythology rather than a linchpin in global security and modern technology. This was tragic negligence with real consequences. By contrast, President Trump saw what Europe could not, or perhaps would not, that Greenland is not a quaint curiosity in the 21st century. It is an essential security asset, an industrial necessity for the West. Everything comes over Greenland. If the bad guys start shooting, it comes over Greenland, he said. From the Arctic flight path of Russian and Chinese intercontinental ballistic missiles to the Arctic shipping lanes increasingly packed with Russian warships, Greenland's importance has surged. The U.S. purchase of Alaska from Russia in 1867 was ridiculed as folly. The European Union sadly still seems to be having trouble emerging from doctrarian fantasies about its military preeminence, green transitioning, and the illusion the great replacement of Europeans and their values by immigrants and their values is merely a conspiracy theory. Instead, Europe is continuing to betray its industrial base and toss away strategic opportunities. Greenland's geopolitical significance was obvious to Trump before it became fashionable to talk about the Arctic as a new theater of great power competition. Unlike the Brussels bureaucrats who mock and ignore both President Trump and potential danger, Trump recognized three facts early. Greenland constitutes a strategic military platform for defending both the Western Hemisphere and Europe, and for monitoring adversaries across the Arctic. Two, melting Arctic ice will open up sea routes that could redefine maritime aggression, as well as opportunities for global commerce. And three, Greenland sits atop some of the world's richest deposits of rare earth, elements, and critical minerals. Minerals, now listen, folks, essential for everything from electric vehicles to missiles and microchips. Yeah, do you really want to see that China or Russia get their hands on that? I guess my only frustration, Dr. Woods, with the Trump administration is for all the talking that President Trump does, and he is probably the most verbal president we've had in modern time, easily accessible really by almost any of the media outlets that want to put in an interview and talk with him, or certainly cover the White House. We went there in May. We had no problem getting our press passes and going in. If we wanted to go there, we could go there pretty much anytime we wanted. We were told, just let them know. And we could have a person stationed there if we wanted to. very easy access to this administration. But with all of that, I sometimes think like the George W. Bush administration, they don't communicate with the American people the bullet points that are the most important. A lot of information gets lost in all of the drama. In other words, these 3 points that I just listed, if President Trump would put these things out in his staff more and more and more, and that's just on this issue, not to mention the other issues, I think the American people would and even his own supporters find themselves understanding his goals and objectives, whereas a lot of times we just don't know what he's doing and why. We're left to guess and wonder. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with all that. I did watch his whole speech at Davos. And as far as the speech is concerned, I'm not talking about his White House inner correspondence and that kind of thing. But as far as his Davos speech is concerned, I mean, I thought the man made a reasonable case as to why he wanted Greenland, why he thinks the United States wanting to purchase Greenland is in our national interest. And he was very clear that he didn't want to do it by force. He wants cooperation, and he explained the reasons why he wanted it and why he felt it was justified. So of all of the things that went down at Davos in his speech, I thought that part of his speech was probably the clearest.
Yeah, and I'm glad he did that. I just wish he had done that a little bit sooner. Because a lot of people were wondering, what is that all about? Talk about, again, enemies that are trying to disrupt us, whether it's Iran positioning drones or missiles in Venezuela. Now we're hearing that there may be a leadership change in Cuba before the year is over, that America may force out the Cuban regime and bring freedom to Cuba. Now, no wonder we have now multiple reports that much of the anarchy, what Just the News is calling an axis of anarchy in Minnesota, is being funded, as we have said for years, since 2020 with the rioters in the street. It's Iranian and Sisi-backed agitators. And now we've got reports that's exactly who's behind this rioting in the Twin Cities. It's the Democrat Socialists of America, the Communist Group, the CCP-tied networks. Again, they're working to destabilize us inside our own country, again, in great benefit to the network of red-green axis. Dr. Woods?
Well, boy, if that happened with Cuba, wouldn't that be something? Remember, it was Batista that ran Cuba, and Cuba at one time was kind of like what the Gaza Strip was like, before it fell into Islamic hands in 2004. I mean, it was an island paradise. And then you had the Castro revolution. You had Castro, being interviewed by liberal press saying he's not a communist. And then you have an island prison where these Cubans get in these little rickety rafts, and sometimes they're just holding, buoys or boards, and they're trying to, make that journey from, Havana basically to Miami in shark-infested waters, in hopes of making it to the United States of America and, breathing free air, so to speak. So that tells you the type of hellhole and island prison that Castro and his regime, turned that paradise island into. And it's interesting that these people, making that journey never go the opposite way. They're never trying to, escape Miami and get back to Havana because there's free health care there and all of the propaganda that we hear about. But it's literally a horrible place. And then you dovetail that with the Cuban Missile Crisis under the Kennedy administration, and you're asking yourself, whatever happened to the Monroe Doctrine? That, what happens in our hemisphere is our business. Of course, Ronald Reagan with Iran-Contra tried to enforce the Monroe Doctrine, and so, boy, I think if the communist regime in Cuba were to topple under the Trump administration, that would be a huge something to talk about in his legacy.
Yeah, indeed. And now let's open the phone lines, by the way. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions on anything that we've been covering, or our panel last night, or what Dr. Woods and I discussed yesterday. your thoughts on what went down at Davos, the International Peace Board, President Trump saying we can basically do whatever we want. They're building out Gaza now with skyscrapers and billions of dollars in investment. And by the way, wait a minute. We got to get the invitation over to BB. Here you go, BB. Sorry. I mean, late invitation, we're told by Jerusalem Post and others. 1-800-347-9829. As we watch this historic storm impacting 40 states, 300 million people potentially. I know people make a lot of noise about the weather.
Skip
and
the
sometimes
stress,
nothing
not the
happens. Sometimes nothing happens. But folks, it looks like this one is going to be one of those situations where it could. And then you add the fact that gold is almost right now at $5,000 an ounce. Silver's popped over $101 an ounce. Our debt and interest rate and interest on our debt is chewing up so much of our GDP each year. America and the dollar seem like it's tipping financially. One has to ask the question, is this why people like Fink at BlackRock and the chairman of now the World Economic Forum is pushing so hard for digitalization so fast? They know they're on the brink. And the question, of course, is part of this happening faster because America is dividing God's land? Joel 3 cited today by Dr. Woods. 1-800-347-9829. All of that's on the table. 1-800-347-9829. 1-800-347-9829. All right, Dr. Woods, we're going to get ready to go to the phone line, but a couple of stories here real quick. The stupidity out of Austin, Texas, your state, that is basically the San Francisco of the South. Austin, Texas names day after pro-Hamas group that called for Islamic rule over U.S. Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant, end quote. So says the Council on American Islamic chairman, an article by Daniel Greenfield. Can you believe this?
Well, I can because I live here. I mean, I live in Houston, Texas, and people need to understand that Texas is being targeted like I've never seen before in terms of this Islamization. And there's a reason for that. I mean, Texas represents massive votes in the Electoral College. And if you can switch us to more of a, I don't know, turquoise, pinkish, bluish type of state, then you will never, ever, ever, ever again, it will be a mathematical impossibility, see a conservative type president in the White House again, someone like Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm learning more and more that our own government, Texas state government, you know, I vote for these people all the time. They're very Republican. But I keep hearing these reports from Rare Foundation and others how our government is financing these different mosques and educational endeavors.
Hold right there. We are back with your calls. 1-800-347-9829. Phone lines open.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
1-800-347-9829. Let's go to the phone lines. They are lit up today. Let's start out with Brian, line 1. Brian in Milwaukee. Hi, Brian. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, hi, Brian and Pastor Andy. My question would be, do you think if Trump insists on dividing Israel, that just as God did with President Bush, do you think God might destroy Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago?
Well, I would pray that wouldn't happen, but you know, there are hurricanes and things, so you know that's kind of what got the Bush Kenny Buckport home, I think, Dr. Woods.
Well, God is very creative on how he deals with these kinds of situations. And I know he's dealt with these kinds of things throughout history. And so I just kind of leave it all in his lap. I just know that when you come against Israel, it typically does not end well for people. Mm-hmm. And so I would just like our powers that be to recognize that and understand it.
Mm-hmm. And again, that doesn't mean we agree with everything the government of Israel does, but they have a right to the land, right? So this isn't a gray area. It's their land. The Bible clearly lays it out. They're not even occupying all the land they've been promised. That'll happen in the millennium, as you and I talk about often. But the land they have now, it's not up for debate. This isn't a gray issue. You know, we can argue other things about the abortion rate in Israel, the LGBTQ parades, all that kind of stuff. But this is a clear issue. Don't fool with their land.
Yeah, well, let me just address real fast the whole do you have to agree with everything the Jewish government does mindset. I would just challenge people to study the first 32 chapters of the book of Ezekiel, because if you did that, people would see it. There's nobody more displeased with the nation of Israel than God.
There you go.
In Ezekiel chapters 1 through 24. I mean, he calls down all kinds of, well, he calls him a harlot and everything else in that section. However, and it's a big however, that section is followed by chapters 25 through 32, I believe it is, in Ezekiel, where now God is calling down judgment on the surrounding nations. He's not dealing with Israel anymore in that section, but the surrounding nations for how they treated the Jewish people. And those are very strong condemnations as well. So what a broad synthetic study like that does for you is it shows you that even though Israel is in unbelief, okay, God still holds the surrounding nations accountable for how they treat his people. And so I wish people would look at that big structure, and it would help them with this whole issue of, you know, just because I'm a Zionist, do I have to agree with everything Israel does? I mean, obviously the answer to that is no, but that doesn't change the fact that Genesis 12 verse 3 says what it says and means what it means, and it's a principle. I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, which is always in effect regardless of the performance of the Jews.
Zoe in Illinois. Zoe, thank you for calling in, Zoe.
Hi, Brandon. I am thinking about the verse about those who say they are Jews and are not, and I may look at this probably a little different than you guys do, but I'm worried about, I wish you would do some programs on the Chabad cult, and it is a cult. And these people are very powerful. And these are Talmudic Jews. You know, they're not, you know, Bible Jews. They're Talmudic. And this is, they did a 60 Minutes program on the Chabad a long time ago. And I'm concerned about if they would replace the United Nations kind of, or meld it into these Noahide law courts that are being set up in Israel. And I saw some formerly claimed to be Christian women take allegiance to these so-called Noahide laws, and these are not biblical. They're not in the Bible. They're not in Genesis. But, you know, when you were talking about yesterday about this Genesis project or whatever you called it, I could just see them bringing in this Noahide system and saying the Gentiles have to keep 7 Noahide laws. And the thing is, one of them, for example, is about not having an idol, and they would consider Christ an idol.
Okay, let's get Dr.
Wouldn't be able to worship Christ.
Let's get Dr. Woods to respond. Dr. Woods, we've got one more call to squeeze in, but go ahead, Dr. Woods.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for examples of Jews behaving badly, you're not going to have to look long and hard for that those examples exist throughout history. They exist today, just like there are examples of Gentiles behaving badly. I mean, we believe that Israel is God's special nation, but currently they are under divine discipline. So I don't think I have to be put in a position where I have to defend everything, the Jewish people do. But the truth of the matter is, in spite of that, they have an unconditional covenant coming from God to them. And it's on that basis I respect them for it.
And by the way, the Israeli government has problems with many of these Jews that are that far right themselves. They're constantly fighting with them over IDF military service, all kinds of stuff. They're constantly dealing with them. You hear sometimes you hear Aaron's frustration with what, he's saying, these people are really, really far right. You hear Aaron's frustration with that group. So even the Israeli government gets frustrated with those people, some of those people not farther right. Let's go to Mark, line 4. Hi, Mark. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I'm worried MAGA hats being replaced with Magog hats. Trump really needs to be enlightened about Islamic ideology. As far as the art of making a deal, I think he's really stepping way out of line on this one. So I think we might get some American bad repercussions from all this stuff.
I agree with you. We're very concerned about that. And I'll tell you something else. We're getting reports I don't like at all that, and we have for about a week now, that Voice of America, that they are blocking, they're doing a blackout on anything coming from the exiled crown prince. And that gives me concern that what they're trying to do is set up to let the MEK, Marxist Islamic group, go in there, that the former MEK people are telling me on the air, they are worse than the regime that we have now. Dr. Woods?
Well, Jesus told that story of a demon that comes out of somebody, and it searches through arid places, and it finds 7 buddies that are more wicked than itself, and they re-inhabit the person, that had the demon cast out of them, and the end state is worse than the first state. And what he's saying there is, if you cast a demon out of something, you sure better replace it with something better quick, or you're going to get something far worse. And so even with, the Shah being toppled, look what we got. We got the Ayatollah. Batista being toppled. Look what we got. We got a Fidel Castro. And so I'm a student of history, and I'm worried, concerned, I should say, this is pattern's going to replicate.
Thanks for being with us, guys. Take care.
This has been.
And we're back, WROS, Jacksonville, Florida, and Dr. Andy Woods. All right, Dr. Woods, what else is on your plate? Anything else that you're looking at?
Well, I guess the big thing that I think about is convergence. And we talk about this frequently, Brandon. It's not just a sign or two. It's everything happening at once. I mean, the Bible warns us of world government. Mm-hmm. We just had the Davos meeting. The Bible warns us about, and I'm just dealing with things that we've talked about today, Persia becoming a hostile regional power. We've dealt with that subject today. The Bible talks over and over again about a cashless society. We talked about that today, how our economy is in a very dangerous position because of this unsustainable national debt that we're running that no one seems to have the ability to deal with, and how that's going to push us probably, into some kind of alternative form of electronic, digitized, tokenized, whatever you want to call it, currency. We've talked all about the Bible warning about dividing the land of Israel. We've dealt with that subject today. So, Brandon, I guess I would ask you this. I mean, 50 years ago, could we do a broadcast like this?
No. In fact,
covered all these subjects? No.
In fact, I just got an email from one of our loyal listeners and supporters saying that his pastor, who is like 60s, late 60s, said as well, he never expected to see all of this in his lifetime. I think a lot of us thought we would be raptured and this stuff would happen after we were raptured, which again, maybe all of those who are opposed to the pre-trib are laughing right now because they're like, oh, you guys ain't seen nothing yet compared to what you're going to. Well, that doesn't mean we're denying pre-tribulation. It's just we're seeing things I didn't think we would see, that we'd still be here to see. So I'm not giving up on that eschatology at all, but I think it's fascinating. And like I said, I don't know where Gog Magog happens. Some people think it could happen before the rapture. Some think it could happen after the rapture. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we should be ready all the time because Jesus can come back at any time. I think that's what we're supposed to, how we're supposed to analyze this. And we're not supposed to look at it as we're in the tribulation.
Right.
I mean, if the ocean turns to blood red, okay, I'll say we're in the tribulation.
If there's a peace deal signed with a guy who just survived a head wound, we'll
none of that has happened. But the thing about prophecy is that they can't take place in a vacuum. The stage has to be set, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the stage set incredibly for the end time scenario, meaning that the signs of Christmas indicate that Thanksgiving is coming because the rapture precedes the tribulation period. So I just hope your folks out there get the message that today is the day of salvation. Now is the time to trust in the provision of Jesus and enter into a personal relationship with him.
Amen to that. I do want to go to one other story real quick. We run out of time. And
by the way, could I have said that on Fox News?
No, absolutely not. No. You know, I'm increasingly, this is me speaking personally, I'm increasingly disgusted by Mexico and their government and their leader. It's a narco state. I think it's pretty much a narco state. That's my opinion, based on everything I've seen. They are in a deep relationship with China. I would venture to guess there's a lot of Islamic territory being taken up there by terrorists and terrorist groups on the border. I think if President Trump wants to look at toppling a government and taking over from Greenland to Iran to Venezuela to Cuba, I would say he ought to put Mexico on his list. I really believe America, this is my opinion, I could be 100% wrong. I believe America will look back and realize one of the greatest threats to our national security was Mexico, and we didn't do anything. I think the case should be made for going in, taking Mexico, arresting their leadership, top to bottom, killing as many of the cartel people as we can, cleaning them out top to bottom, taking that away from Mexico, from China, and securing our southern border, which the narco states largely run. They're militarized with military weaponry. We've shown you the pictures. I think Mexico is one of the greatest national security threats to our country. Dr. Woods?
Well, I say this, bring back the Monroe Doctrine. We can call it the Donroe Doctrine, but you know, the truth of the matter is it's long been recognized in modern times that what's happening in our hemisphere is in our national interest.
Well, look at this, we run out of time. Mexico created Migrant TV to coordinate migrant political action inside America, okay? We've got several articles today that Mexico is working to destabilize America, okay? And at some point, we need to say, enough is enough, and we're coming, and we're taking your country. And I know you guys have all these La Raza people, the race, that want to take us and take Texas and Mexico and California. Guess what? You don't have the military we have. We're coming, and we're coming to take all of Mexico and expand America. I'm for the greater, you know, they always talk about the Greater Israel Project. I'm for the Greater America Project. You know, make Mexico great again by bringing it back under, well, bringing it under our control and shoving out the narco terrorists, Iran and China, because Mexico is funding and allowing for a lot of the problems in our country right now. That's my opinion. We'll see what happens. Andy Woods is andywoodsministries.org, andywoodsministries.org. Talk to you tonight. Join me now is Nick Holscher. Look at this, guys. American Academy of Pediatrics hit with federal RICO lawsuit for vaccine safety.